Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have Ryan Carter of DC Outfitters out of Utah on the line. And Ryan just got done with a real successful hunt in Utah and killed a phenomenal bull, and seen a bunch of pictures of it on Instagram, and it's an awesome bull. Ryan, how you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great. How are you, Jay?
Good, man. You've had a couple of really bang-up years. I had you on the podcast before, and last elk season you had great success, and then this year you followed it up with another unbelievable bull, one of your clients. Why don't you tell the listeners about the hunt and how it all went down?
Oh, that's a long story. But, yeah, we can totally do it. So I didn't kill a bull, but my client did. His name's Kyle Ostrin. He's out of North Dakota, just a really solid, just good dude. I was really excited for this guy because he was just so, he's killed a lot of elk. He was just probably one of the most genuine people I've ever met. He came to me, he told me he was looking to kill, he's a bow hunter. He was looking to kill the biggest bull possible, and he was looking for something really wide. And immediately, what struck to mind was a bull that we've been watching that I call MJ. The reason we call him MJ is because I've been getting trail camera pictures of him since at least 2013. I have a couple pictures from 2012 that might be him, and he was just an okay bull back then. About 2015, he really exploded. Have a lot of pictures of him from those years where, for whatever reason, he's got a kind of funny nose, and his tongue was always hanging out. It's the weirdest thing. And so we started calling him MJ because, if you can remember Michael Jordan back in the day, whenever he hit the paint, his tongue was out.
Yeah.
And so he kind of picked up a nickname with us, and just been kind of a bull to watch for the last few years. Both 2015 and 2016. Those years I was guiding rifle guys. Well, I did have an archery hunter in 16, but she killed opening day on a pretty good bull at 4.0 something. It was a pretty nice bull. But so he wasn't even on the table, but by the time rifle came around with my second client, he had busted off his G4 and G5 off his right side, and he had done that 2 years running. So it kind of saved his neck for a couple of years. But when Kyle came to me looking for a wide bull, this bull immediately came to mind. I was thinking he was probably pushing 56, 57 wide. He hit 53 and something on his inside. He might have hit 56 or 7 on his outside. To be honest, I never taped him. Yeah. That bull came to mind, and we just had such a long history with him. We had a pretty good idea of what days he goes in and out, and kind of where he ran. We struggled finding him at first. The area I guide in Utah, there's not a lot of glassing. I don't carry a spotting scope with me. My binoculars aren't big giant things. I run 8x42s because they're light, and I never look more than 80 to 100 yards. It's really thick. So trail cameras is a lot of my game for that country, just because I can get a good idea of what's in the area and try to find some kind of pattern to where they run, where they frequent the most. And once I kind of find them, which I didn't find MJ till about it was mid-July this year. I had a friend forward me a picture of him, early season velvet, and then and once he found him, I knew he was just working his way into where he normally is, so I just loaded that area with cameras. I don't even remember. I think at one time we were pushing 18 cameras before we finally got him rotating on 1 or 2. By August, we had him hitting on maybe 11 different cameras, and we had 2 or 3 that he was hitting really hard. So of those 2 or 3 spots, we had a little tiny tight spot where they were hitting in daytime. Most all the other pictures were night. It was just a little tiny meadow, maybe 50 yards wide by 20 yards long. Had a dry wallow in the middle, just where they like to roll in the dirt. We called it MJ's paint box, and set a stand in it.
Tree stand?
Yeah, we set him up in a tree stand. We'd figured out which way the winds were blowing in the mornings and the evenings, and kind of how to set him up, just like we would do if we were whitetail hunting. We found a pinch point and a good tree on one corner and set him up. Opening day, I got him set up in his stand. I walked over to the trail cam, and he had been in there 2 hours before. Still velvet dangling off his horns. Just a awesome trail camera picture. I ran up the tree. I told him, "Oh, he's here. Like, let's get out of here." And I bailed, and he sat, and for 2 days didn't hear or see much. We may have had high hopes for nothing. On the morning of day 3, hiking up to the stand, he was about halfway into the area, and he ducked under a tree. When he lifted his head and his headlamp, the bull was laying in the trail just 15 feet in front of him.
Oh my goodness!
They had to stare down for 2 or 3 minutes. I said, "Nah, really, man? Was it like 15 seconds? It just seemed long." He's like, "No, it was 2, 3, and 4 minutes long."
Oh my goodness!
He goes, "I had all my arrows there. I had my bow in hand." He goes, you just can't do it, So I just sat and looked at him, and he told me multiple times. He goes, "I am going to hold out for this bull because of that moment." Watching him walk away, dip down under the trees, shaking his head back and forth, trying to get through the aspens, was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. He said, "I will hold out till the end of this hunt just for a chance at this bull," which was really fun because, typically guys kind of start to hesitate a week, 2 weeks in. Kyle didn't kill till day 19. And so, to sit that long, 5 hours each session, morning and night, 10 hours a day for 19 days, it's just an amazing thing. I can't imagine having to do it. The fact that he did is just...
Was the bull showing up in the middle of the night or anything, or did he vanish?
Well, after that, so that was the morning of day 3. After that, he vanished. And so my pattern on him was kind of where he was hitting all the cameras. He would be in there for like 7 or 8 days. 7 days, and then one time 8 days, and the next time 7 days. And then he'd vanish for 10 days straight. And it was 10 days both times since we had found him mid-July. So once he disappeared then, we literally had another 10 days of nothing. We saw no pictures. We had no sightings. We had nothing. He was just gone. But once he did move back in, so I shifted his stand out of the paint box into a bigger meadow. And this meadow is probably 170 yards long and 50 wide. It's a pretty big-sized meadow. We set him up on the corner where the wind would probably be the best, and I set him up there just because we were getting tons of elk walking through that meadow, and he wouldn't be so bored because we weren't getting much action at all in that paint box. So once I had him on the meadow, he was seeing elk. He was doing a lot better mentally. At that 10-day break point, MJ started coming back, and he came back in just full steam with 30 or 40 cows. Screaming, wallowing, muddy, just full rut. It was kind of early.
So when would that be, Ryan? Roughly like end of August?
No, we were about September. At that point, we had been 3 plus 10. We were about the second or third of September. And that's a little early for southern Utah. We do get a lot of, like the second the velvet comes off, a lot of your young bulls start screaming and pushing cows around. That 5-year-old class, the 330 type bulls, they start, this is finally their year, and they get a little excited and they push cows around, but it's a little preemptive. The big bulls don't typically push cows that early, but he came in just full bore. So it was a little shocking, but it was cool. For 2 days, Kyle had him coming in, maybe 3, but he stayed out just past shooting range. He was coming out of the same corner, and it was the far corner from where the tree stand was. Closest he got him in those 3 days was 97 yards, and it just wasn't a good, ethical shot. So he sat back with my Sony and took pictures out of the tree stand, and just there were some phenomenal pictures, but it just wasn't panning out. So somewhere in there, I came in from the backside checking cameras above his area. We had more cameras kind of on a trail in and out, and walked right in on the bull. Literally walked into him at 30 yards, came over a rise, and he's just there. It was cool to see. It kind of cost us another day, maybe a day and a half before we killed him, because he kind of took off through some rough area. In that day and a half period, we moved him across the meadow into a ground blind. It was kind of a sketchy spot because the wind was never good from that corner that he was coming in. And it was smart on his part because he was walking in with the wind in his favor both mornings and nights. But we set up a ground blind. I put an ozonics in there and gave him a hard back wall so it would kind of try to contain his scent a little bit. And it worked. I think it had only been 1 day of him sitting in that blind, and MJ came walking in, and this time he only had maybe, I think he told me four cows and a calf. The herd was quite a bit smaller, but he came in, hit one of the limbs on the shot and kind of hit him back a little bit. He was about 3 ribs up, so he clipped the back end of his lungs and part of his liver. The bull, it took him a couple hours to expire, but the job got done.
Nice. He's a giant too. How big is he?
I hate saying, because I run a really tight tape because I get nervous. Last year when Donna killed her bull, I taped him at 402, and I think he went 407. Brian Schiller's bull, I taped at 393, and he went 403. So I always hesitate.
So in other words, you can't add, can you? Or you don't want to know the truth.
I just run as tight as I can because I would hate hate to tell somebody it's 400 and have it not be. But I taped him at 406 and 53 inches wide.
Fantastic.
He's busted off a few points. I imagine he's missing. Some of the guys think he's missing 6 or 7. I don't know, but he's at least missing 4. Regardless, man, a bull of that caliber, I wouldn't have cared if he was 380. He'd be flipping arrows at him all the same. So sure. It's fun that he breaks the 4 mark, and that's good enough for all of us involved. We were super happy just to get lucky enough after 19 days to get an arrow at him. So
sure. Well, that's an incredible story, and your Instagram, following along the different photos you have of them, it's just really cool to see all of the history you have and all the documentation. It's really, really neat stuff. If I had to ask you a question, the first question would be, what did this bull teach you?
Well, a couple things. The biggest thing was his rotation was a little funny. Usually my bulls, they have this rotation where they'll hit one camera and then a second camera and a third camera, and it's this big circle. And they make these big routes, and it's almost like day 1, day 3, day 4, day 6.
How big of a circle? What are we talking here?
We might be talking anywhere from 3/4 of a mile to a 4-mile radius, and it'll go through that rotation through the summer. I really pattern a lot of bulls. I don't run a big area. I run about 20 miles of mountain, maybe 30 tops, and I run about 110 cameras between me and my 2 guys, and so we really try to get these bulls on lockdown so that when the bow hunt starts, we kind of have their most frequented areas pinned down. MJ was different because he would absolutely leave an area for 10 full days and come back and stay in one spot for 7. He really didn't move that much, and that 7-day period he would move maybe 600 yards, between 5 or 6 cameras. He was really in a tight spot, and then just I don't know if when he left for the 10 days if he was in one spot doing the same thing, or if he had another rotation and I just couldn't get him where he was at. But it was a different pattern for me to have him do that. But it was funny because I told Kyle, I said, man, if his rotation stays true, he should show up Thursday right before your hunt. And he did. I mean, it was just, it was incredible. Another thing I noticed on this bull, because I have so many years of him, I was able to look back on dates and moon periods on when his movement was, and some of the days he came in was the exact day he rolled through the day before. 2 of the days were to the very time. And I don't know how that would work, how they would know that, but it was wild to look at his movements based on moon periods. Mm-hmm. A lot of the hunt calendars he hit right on. You know, his best movements was right when the hunt calendar said the movements were, whether it was night or day. That's what he did. I also took a note from a lot of the whitetail hunters and tried to find a spot where he frequented the most in the daytime. Mm-hmm. You know, whitetail hunters will pattern their bucks, but they won't even sit and stand or take time off work until that buck's hit during the daytime. Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to make sure Kyle had the best chance at daylight movement, since most of my pictures on this bull were nights. And that's why I picked that area that I called the paint box, because he was hitting that in the daytime fairly frequent. And so there were a couple things that changed my game up a little bit with this bull. It wasn't just setting a stand or a blind on their most frequent spot. It was trying to find a daytime movement spot. It was trying to pinpoint which days he was coming in and how soon. And there were a lot of little shocking things that I kind of learned with this bull. But in the end, I can't really take a lot of credit for it, because really what killed this bull was Kyle having the dedication to sit on him and listen to me. I mean, I don't know how many guys after that many days would even listen to their guide. You know, it's like, man, I can just see guys, you know, I've killed elk, man. This just isn't panning out. Let's try something else. And Kyle, you know, I just kept telling him, even the night before the hunt, he'd said, man, Ryan, it's been a day and a half. This was his our talk right before he went in. He says, it's been a day and a half. We still got those little bulls bugling up top, and last time we saw him, he was fighting them off his cows. Like, maybe he's up there. Should we sneak up in there? And I said, man, Kyle, I'm telling you, your best bet's this ground blind. Your best bet's this spot, because he always comes back. Always. And he said, yeah, you're right. I'm going to go set it. And he sat it, and that morning he killed that bull. And
so, Ryan, don't you think with one of the benefits of the Utah hunt starting so early is that you actually, if you have bulls patterned, you can actually have a chance at a bull that maybe, say, starting now, maybe his pattern would completely change, where he's running around like a wild man. Would you agree that while a lot of guys complain that the Utah season is too early and ends too soon, that you've obviously had a lot of success with your hunters killing giant bulls? How much of that is due to the fact that the season does start early and you can get some sort of an established pattern with them?
Yep. So I've said this multiple times, and I may not have said to you or your audience. So this is my true feelings on trophy hunting elk for Utah. I would take almost any archery tag in this state over the governor's tag, because I will pattern them and kill them before Labor Day happens. It's just, if you're trophy hunting bulls, the rut's fun, and the rut can be just crazy, and sometimes you get lucky and it works out well for you. More often than not, though, I seem to have better success patterning them in the summertime and killing them in those first 2 weeks of the archery season, because I can pattern them just like a mule deer. I can hunt them just like a deer, whether it's in a ground blind or, I mean, Donna's bull, we were on foot last year. But once I saw where he was headed, I knew exactly how to kill him. It was a matter of getting above him. It was waiting for the wind to shift and setting in a spot that I knew he was going to cross. And we killed her bull. Not opening day, it was the second morning. But, I mean, it was the first couple days of the hunt. And it was just knowing the bull's pattern, and it was knowing, you know, where I needed to set up with the wind in order to get an arrow or a shot. You know, it was just, sure. I still can't take credit. Her shot was amazing. It was 27 yards. You think, well, that's a chip shot. But when a lady's only shooting 52 pounds.
Yeah.
You question every little thing. Does she have enough energy at 20 yards to get it done? Do we need to make sure she have a quartering away shot? Like, everything was played out perfect, and I can't ever take credit for what my hunters do because they pull it off in the end, just like Kyle did with this bull. But I really feel that early season is just a way to trophy hunt those bulls. If you can find them, that is the hardest part. And then patterning them, second hardest part. The third hardest part is just beating the mental game of, am I doing the right thing? Should I sit here this long? Like, I'm invested 10 days of sitting. Like, is this really going to happen? But more often than not, I've just found that these bulls are very patternable, and I really like the early season. And I mean it.
For sure. How much of patterning is, I guess my question is, it's easy to say to pattern them. Like, it's easy to say that. But you're talking about the mental part of, he goes on a 10-day cycle where he leaves and then he comes back. It's almost like, I want to go, chase other bulls and then come back, but you never know if he might show back up early. How do you, I'm sure you're a wreck. I don't know you very well, but I'm sure the whole time you're a wreck and you're racking your brain and you're going crazy trying to do the best you can for your client. But it sounds like from your history, like you really have a bead on patterning these bulls, and not only that, but like totally using the patience game and saying, I know he's going to walk back through this meadow. It might not be today or tomorrow, but he's going to walk back during this season right through that spot. How much of that is just total mental game?
Oh, with these limited entry tags, Arizona's got the same kind of pressure Utah does. These guys wait so long. The hardest part for me is keeping guys motivated, to try to get them to believe in me that, hey, I'm telling you, I know what I'm doing. Like, please hang tight. Because these guys wait so long for these tags. They're sitting 20-something years on points, or they've invested X amount of dollars in purchasing the tag, because a lot of them are really spendy. I've picked this particular tag up for as cheap as like $16,000 before, but this same tag sold for $45,000 before. Archery. This isn't even a rifle or a late season or premium tag. This is a bow tag. So there's a lot of pressure on these guys, and the mental game's tough. Having a hunter that will listen to his guide and have the trust in you that the job will get done is it's a hard game. And so that's a big part of it, especially on these long waits, especially on these expensive tags. So the mental game isn't fun.
Okay, a couple quick questions, and then I know you got to run. You've got rifle hunts coming up here. Antler growth in Utah, in the areas you've been running, is antler growth average, above average, below average, and why?
So for that area, it's about par. I wouldn't say it was really good. I had a couple bulls actually shrink a little bit this year. The winter didn't really affect southern Utah like it did northern Utah. Especially like these bulls, they have desert country they can run down to the second it gets kind of hairy. But the dry July, I don't think helped. July was really dry here in Utah, and our acorns really fried. So I did lose a little bit, but I wouldn't say it was better or worse. It seems like a lot of units that do par on average years are doing really well. Units like the Wasatch, seems like there's some giant bulls on that unit this year, and it's managed for a 5-year-old bull unit. Most of the bulls that come off that unit are 5s and small 6s. And this year, I've seen more pictures of just good bulls coming off than I have in a long time. So there's areas that I think that the elk are doing really well, and then a lot of areas like where I'm at, I think it was about par. I wouldn't say it was above average or below. It just sat where it normally does.
Okay, that's a good answer there. What about as far as rutting behavior and bugling? The archery season is almost over, right? A few days. How does it look going into the rifle hunt? I mean, are they going to be full tilt, or are they going to continue to get, what stage are they at now, and what's your prediction for the rifle hunt?
Right now, they've kind of backed off. Almost everyone I've talked to, everyone that's kind of working, they still have bills calling, but it's right at first light, right at the crack of dark. And that's pretty typical. Utah, we seem to have a big surge right after Labor Day. The 5th through the 10th kind of goes crazy for a little bit. And then right before rifle season, it backs off. Nice thing about Utah, if you do draw this early season rifle tag, it's usually prime rut. I mean, it's kind of when things really blow up. But I'm really thinking the beginning of this rifle season, I think the first couple days are going to be a little slow, and I think it'll pick up. The 20th is always our prime spot here in Utah. Seems like the 20th and 21st, our full moon phases out, and we seem to just have a really good hunt around then. And since that's about day 4 of our hunt this year, I'm predicting a lot of good bulls are going to fall during those times. Should be a good rut hunt, and I've said it before. I'm not a huge fan of the rut because I get tired of calling in. Like I said, I can't glass. Like, we're just going in blindly, bugle after bugle, and I get tired of calling in the 330s, the 350s, when we're trying to chase a little bit better, or your book bulls in that 370. And so we'll go 5 or 6 days pushing for that type of caliber of bull. But hey, it's my own fault, and I hunt where I hunt because I like it. I can't complain when we're calling in bulls. It's fun.
Your bread and butter unit is the Boulder unit, right? We talked on the podcast before. That's the one you like the most. It's the one that's kind of where you hang your hat.
I wouldn't say it's the unit I like the most. It's the unit I'm the most successful.
Okay.
It is a beautiful unit. You're in Red Rock, you're in Ponderosas, you're up in Aspens. I mean, it's got a little bit of everything, but it's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily fun. It's a lot of work because you can't glass, you can't sit on ridges, and you can't.
It's a thick, nasty mountain for sure.
Yeah, you can't take moments just to breathe and hang out with your dad and talk. You're constantly on the move. So I wouldn't say it's my favorite unit, but it is the one I'm the most successful on. There's a lot of units that are a lot just funner for elk hunting, where you sit on ridges and glasses, and you can overlook all the aspen trees, and I mean, they're just beautiful. And I really like units like the Pavon. I love the Dutton. I absolutely love that unit. I wish they'd put it back in our premier kind of pot, but it's not. Book cliffs are the same way, big plateaus, and you can get in some areas where you just can glass over just thousands and thousands of acres, and it's super fun. Manti, same way. I love glassing the Manti. I love hunting the Manti, another unit that could do really well if they'd up the age class, but they manage it for what they do, and the herds seem to be really healthy, so I can't complain. But yeah, the Boulder's my prime spot.
That's awesome, man. Well, you've had unbelievable success, and it's you've put in a lot of work, and I commend you for that, and I really appreciate you coming on, sharing a little bit of knowledge and telling us the story about the big bull. And encourage everyone. It's DC_Outfitters, right, on Instagram?
Ryan_DC Outfitters. Yep.
I'm sorry, Ryan_DC Outfitters on Instagram.
Yep.
Encourage the listeners to go give Ryan a follow and check out all his photos, and go back, look at last year's photos too. And he's got a lot of great stuff. And buddy, just keep up the great work, and I really appreciate you spending time, and look forward to seeing your success with your rifle hunters coming up here in a few days.
Oh, thanks a million, Jay. It's always good talking with you.
All right, buddy. God bless. Take care.
You too. Have a good night.